but yeah, thanks for doing the podcast with me. I appreciate it. It was kind of a little bit of a random thing,
Yeah.
I went to your event, checked it out. I've been to several of them before. This was
Well, we
definitely
got 6 done now. 6 in the
six of
books.
them, really. Yeah, this was, out of the three that I've been to, I think this is probably my favorite one.
Yeah.
I think it was definitely the largest one. Is that correct, or no? Almost seemed
Yeah.
bigger than normal, maybe, but I did miss a couple of years.
But
So
it was definitely more jam packed.
yeah, maybe that's what it was. But it
Yeah.
was awesome. Super, super great event. For people that are not super familiar with Checked It Out
Yeah.
or the Porsche community,
Yeah.
uh, can you kind of explain what the event is briefly, just so they know what we're talking about, what event
So we're basically a street fest with cars. This event was designed to showcase Porsche ownership, Porsche good vibes, hanging out in the city. When I kind of had the idea with the guy, it's named after Karsten. Initially, when we got things rolling, people were very, I'd say the word negative, but perhaps that's the true essence of what their standpoint was. They're like, why would you want to do that? Why would I want to come to a busy urban area with my car when I could be in a giant parking lot with a bunch of other fools? But that was kind of the blowback we had when we got started.
it makes sense. And
Yeah.
again, to piggyback and not to try to be negative, but it is true. Generally, anytime you start anything, especially if people don't know how to correlate it to anything else,
Yeah.
there's that initial, like you said, blowback or that reaction, because it sort of makes them uncomfortable because they don't understand it. They don't know what to make of it, and it's hard for them to place themselves there, even though you're sure that it needs to happen and
Yes.
confident that you want to do it.
And knew that there were others out there that felt the same way.
Yeah.
There was others out there that were like, oh my God, this is a godsend. We're so thankful this is happening,
Yeah.
But the bottom line, I seen a thing not too long ago on Instagram of all places about, it was in a music thing, and it was about Jimi Hendrix and, what a revolutionary he was. And people didn't know they wanted his music before he existed, right?
Yeah.
They would have wanted another bubblegum, teen 1965 boy band or something. But then he comes in the world and it changes the whole game.
Yeah.
Then they realize this is what.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and then people are so thankful for it, and celebrating, what you're doing.
Yeah.
I've definitely been there myself
Right.
numerous times, over and over. And eventually you just learn to kind of ignore that. And almost, to me, to a degree, it's somewhat of a marker that I'm headed in the right direction. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't obviously just run into the crowd head first, all the time, but sometimes it is a good guide to let you know, like, hey, you're probably onto something here if people were a little upset about it or a little unsure,
Yeah. Some are going left, just go the opposite direction.
Yeah, exactly. And you also had mentioned when we first sat down and just started chatting before we started recording that low end garage had kind of come prior. That was like the base, that was the foundation of all this. And I know that because I somewhat keep track of what you do on Instagram here and there when I get time. And that was one of the Instagrams that I remember seeing. So can you kind of give me a little bit of background on what that is and how that led to, an event like Check It Out?
So it's just something I created, I think at 15 or 16, just to have fun, someplace to put Porsche content. Then another point, I was like, where can we have a hub on Facebook where we could list all the events in the area, like what's going on, how can we be connected and everything. Then as a group, we did some karting outings in the winter, and that's kind of where it went. I created an annual garage party at my place, and we're just to hang out and, beer share or whatever we were doing, with all our car friends.
Yeah.
And now it's evolved, people invite us to come do events at their place. Like I have Lincoln Common coming up at the end of the month. Great views. They're on a rooftop of their parking deck. And one of the challenges I faced with Low End Brand was started a few years ago, was like I wanted to make it known that Low End is my brand for all makes and models of car. If you like your car, we like your car.
Oh, I see.
Checked It Out as the annual Porsche gather. Low end is more universal. We do things at smaller scale, but I myself am not all just about Porsches. I like American muscle cars. I like JDM stuff. I have two Lexuses, but it's just an avenue for to do different things.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that outlook, and I think that, if you're really a car person, you can appreciate more than one thing. You don't have to just
Yeah.
adhere to one thing, even though you really, like, I feel primarily passionate, about P cars, but, there's other things that I really appreciate. There's other things that I eventually want to get as a goal car down the road.
Even if you don't like it, you can respect it.
Yeah, absolutely. How many cars would you say, just off the top of your head, were at the most recent Checked It Out? Because it seemed like a
So
lot.
we had 322 individuals registered with their cars. You go 11 cars for Porsche Restoration Challenge. Mapleton Westmont Porsche probably brought out another 10. All the various sponsors, would bring 2 or 3 cars of their own.
Yeah.
So, it's 260 or 360, excuse me.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
It's a massive amount of cars on a city block, or whatever that was exactly.
Couple blocks of Knox, yeah.
Yeah.
2 parking lots, then 2 indoor locations.
Yeah. It was incredible. And, ever since I went to the first one, I'm not sure when it was probably pre-pandemic, one of those years. I had a good feeling about it from the moment that I stepped into whatever parking lot that was over in the West Loop. I think that's where it was at.
Sure.
And Katie, my fiance, and I were walking around, and people were friendly, talkative. They were allowing us to be inquisitive about their cars. Yeah. There was very little stuffiness.
Yeah.
And that gave me a really good feeling, and it made me want to keep going back. And it just felt kind of like an art thing. It didn't really feel like a sort of uppity car show, And I was like a little surprised by that originally, because you never know what you're walking into,
Right.
So that's what made me want to keep going back. And
in the early days, we had an older gentleman, can't remember who exactly, but he gave us kind of the nicest comment because he was so happy to be there because he was getting engagement from a 20-something for curious about his Porsche and wanted to talk to him. And that was like, when you're going to your traditional car show and you're sitting down in your lawn chair and being all like this, that shit ain't happen. But we foster our environment, I guess, where there's people want to meet, mix and mingle and engage.
Yeah.
Very thankful for that.
Now, is that something that you pushed to a degree, or is that something or is that just your own and your team's own influence on sort of the culture, the people that might show up? Because it's not like those people, but it just happens,
Yeah.
Anyways, I really appreciate it. Kind of at this stage of my life where if I don't feel like that's what's going on when I'm at a place, I'm probably not going to be there for very long. I just...
Yeah, and we ask a lot of people, we'll ask them to stay 6 hours, or at least have their car in the for 6 hours, which is quite an undertaking for many.
Sure. Yeah. And, like I said, I always have good experiences at them. And this year, my fiance and I had to go to a wedding up in Madison. So I was only able to be there for an hour.
Oh, but you got some time.
Yeah, 1 hour. And I took my car there, and I was just hoping that, try to get a decent parking spot up by the gate.
Yeah.
Just because if I couldn't enter, if I couldn't submit it, I wanted to at least try to be a part of it, and I got there a little later than I wanted to be there. And they were like, you got to turn around, go back out to the main street. And I was like, it is what it is. And there was a guy who heard them tell me turn around, who had like a newer Jeep or something like that. He was like an older guy, but I think he knew what was going on with the event. Like, he wasn't just a random.
Yeah.
So he came over to me. He said, "Hey, I got my Jeep right over there." So he goes, "I'll pull out of there, and you can have that spot right by the gate." It's just
right in that first block of Knox.
Yeah, it's just like little gestures like that, where that guy saw that I had my car, and he knew why I pulled in. I didn't pull in on accident. I was trying to get by the gate.
Yeah.
It's just like little things like that. It goes a long way. It made my whole day.
Well, that's cool because there's only a few spots there. And
yeah.
And then we got to try to fit a food truck in those spots too.
It's all tall order, but there's a lot of cars. I mean, it was to some degree causing a little bit of a traffic jam, and it made me hyped, to see that many people come out, for that event and just see it growing. And it just seems like it's really, really alive. And
Well, we knew this was going to be a tough one with only one entrance on Knox.
yeah,
There was nowhere else to send the cars.
yeah,
Our volunteers at this point are used to it, know how to roll with everything
yeah,
now. It's
sure,
but with this project, they probably did get more than they bargained for in
yeah,
terms of the workload.
yeah,
But I expressed my appreciation to them for that. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, any good leader, knows when to tell people that, and usually it's all day, like
well,
so.
the whole staging crew is like this, the team of guys and split up into various teams that
Yeah,
have area 1 and 2 and 3, and are down this block or in this parking lot and everything, and they all kind of come together and
yeah,
work under Dan Kubrick, who designs
yeah,
the whole layout of the cars, the way you see things, the way you interact with things. And I learned a new thing from him this year, like it's probably going to become this like cliche now, but the drones don't lie. Once you get the camera above and you're looking down at the way the layout is,
yeah,
one car out of place from what Dan has designed, what he desired to draw on paper,
yeah,
could kind of, I won't say overrule it,
yeah,
but you notice that one car, oh, something happened there. Why is that guy isn't quite in that spot? But it's
yeah,
there's a little bit of genius at play there.
yeah. There's definitely a flow of traffic, and I could notice it when I was walking through there. It was so easy to sort of get to the back end of it. And then the way it kind of wrapped around the parking lot, you can go in the building, come out the other side.
Yeah.
Then it kind of goes down the street again, and then it goes in another building, and then you come out of that building, and you're kind of at the end of it. It's just very walkable, very enjoyable event.
We think, though, unfortunately, like a lot of people did not go all the way down Knox. And if they didn't, I apologize. But we had the whole area they called a hangar with
Yeah,
50, 60 cars in it, which was a crazy display that I wish you all could have enjoyed if you missed it.
yeah,
I was in there only like 3 minutes that day, so I
yeah, yeah,
I only got to take one peek of it at full power and didn't even walk all the way inside it.
yeah,
But it was right where the DJ was, and at the main parking lot, the Fort Knox Studios, where we had 000. It's like a cool area, but we're used to being able to walk in from different entrances.
I see what you're saying.
Things. So
Yeah,
we did not have that
yeah.
advantage with this product.
No, I think it ended up being great. And it was actually kind of fun for me to search to see like where the areas were at. It wasn't right in front of my face, but that's all right. I was kind of wandering around. I didn't know I was going to get kicked out of a parking lot or not. But it was.
We do our best to make sure everyone sees the event map beforehand.
Yeah.
That it's in your email. It was on our website, but not everyone checks out that stuff.
Yeah. Now, how do you prepare for an event like that scale? I mean, is that something that you guys start some
we were working on it
prior?
last year.
Okay.
You could say that basically because the Checked It Out, Chuck 23 was in the West Loop, was at Morgan full. And our idea with last year's one was to utilize the city streets. We had 9 streets closed in our department. And with that said, we had no indoor space to store a bunch of cars.
Oh, I see.
So I met the guys from Grid Life, Sean, Chris, Charlie, and we connected and we're able to store the restoration challenge cars from Porsche. They have a contest with the dealers in our area, which is the whole Midwest and upper north or northeast.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, 12 cars we stored there. So when they were being stored there and being judged, I talked to the Grid Life guys and I was, why don't we talk about maybe doing the whole event in your location for 2024? And once we locked onto that, it made all the sense in the world, something different, which is what I live for. I want everyone to look at the pictures of a checked out event and be able to tell which one it was.
Yeah.
I had an offer once to be in a really cool location and I was mulling it over. Like, do I want to be in the same place every year and make people go to the same spot every year?
Yeah.
I might have to one day, but
yeah, understandable.
I like change. I like giving you a different look.
Yeah, I think it takes, some balls to move it around because like you mentioned earlier, there's going to be pros and cons of each different location. But I think people, I know I respect it. I think other people respect it as well. And you said something earlier about, having it in an urban environment, having it in the city, for better or worse. That's where we live. And, and I like having things in the city, even if it's a little tough, even if it's hard, because you have the whole environment around you. You have the grid of the city. In your case, it was in an industrial area. So it was a totally different vibe than before. It's a little harder, it was a little more desolate, but like in a very
It's a
cool way.
destination.
Yeah.
In our events, even in the West Loop, when we've been further west,
Yeah.
they've been destinations of sorts. You didn't if you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Last year, sure, thousands of people walked through it, like, what the hell is this shit?
Yeah, sure.
But
Now,
you can't do that all the time.
how did you get into cars specific, or how did you get into cars in general? And then how did you get into Porsches specifically? Did the Porsches come first and then it was general cars, or the cars early on?
Porsche was never a thought.
It wasn't for myself either, so it's
No,
kind of
I
funny.
mean, I do kind of remember having a 930 Hot Wheels that I liked, with the big whale tail or anything.
Yeah,
Who knows? Maybe it was a 911 with just turbo look.
yeah, sure. It's
But
hard to say.
yeah, right, right. And actually, I was just kind of thinking not too long ago how my grandma used to put Hot Wheels on like birthday cakes she would make me. My
That's
father's side. That was like a routine thing back in the day.
yeah. She probably didn't realize what she was setting you up for.
Well, my father reinforced all of it too.
uh,
And then basically with my dad, somewhere in the late 80s, he decided to relive his youth and went out and bought a 65 Chevy Impala SS396,
damn.
which turned into a 67 442. That was probably of the cars that he has had in the recent or last few decades,
Yeah,
this phase of his life.
yeah,
Probably my favorite. And that was such a great car. It was all black, 400 or shifter, all that shit. So
yeah,
we were like totally on both sides of my family, very GM. If you're of a certain age, you know what that means. Like
Yeah.
that's probably irrelevant now.
sure.
It was like back to my dad, um, around the early 2000s, he got sick of dealing with GM crap. And then he went to do Japanese cars, like, which I kind of made the same move too for like my daily stuff too.
Yeah,
So that's what I was saying. It's kind of, this whole GM Ford family thing is kind of something of, maybe if you're younger than a Gen X and you don't know what the hell we're talking about,
yeah,
right?
yeah, for
Perhaps. But and then there's those Chrysler people. They were always weirdos. But anyway.
sure. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so we definitely favor GM cars. My dad loved GTOs, Pontiacs. My first car was a 1969 Oldsmobile Cutlass S. That
Yeah,
just a plain Jane old Cutlass 350 2-barrel that we got out of Arizona for like $3,300 or something.
yeah, yeah,
It's a car occasionally I have dreams of driving it, but
yeah.
that's where it started. And
It's a
then,
good car to have early on.
yeah, it was notorious in the high school parking lot,
Yeah, for sure.
kind of thing. But until like I got into the whole Porsche thing, I kind of did like the sensible sort of daily driver thing. I did have a 96 Mustang when I bought it used, but the 4.6 was doing it.
Mhm.
So that was maybe one kind of fun.
Yeah,
When I say fun car, I mean rural drive in a V8.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If anyone's ever drove one of those or ridden one of those, they know what that's like. It's kind of a wild experience.
Yeah, but always kind of faced that certain sensibility, like, oh, I have to have a car to get around in the snow. Well,
Yeah,
okay, for the 3 days a year it
Yeah.
snows, big fucking deal.
yeah, exactly. No, I
But
understand that.
once I basically got into the whole Porsche thing, and I had a pickup truck I could drive anytime I wanted, still do.
Yeah,
So I'm basically, my life is good Porsches and big trucks.
yeah,
But I recently did buy a new daily that is a Lexus LS460, which is 380 some horsepower V8.
damn.
It's a California car, so it's a rural drive. So if you look on the used market, most of them in Chicagoland are 4-wheel drive, and
Yeah,
I don't need that.
yeah. I was gonna say I didn't know that they made those in rear-wheel drive. I mean,
And the rear wheel has a better trans too, as 8-speed transmission
That makes sense.
and like 26 more horsepower.
That's awesome. So, was there anything particular that got you into Porsches, or how did that happen exactly? Because usually there's something that makes you kind of take that turn, and I
Yeah.
was just curious. It seems like there had been some kind of a experience or inspiration.
I started thinking about 911, so it was like during the 997 gen, I
Yeah.
guess was tailing off, and I made a really impulse, stupid Amazon purchase and bought a Porsche coffee table book. And I was thinking about, well, Porsche 911 is like this cult thing. It's
Yeah.
what other rear-wheel drive car is, or rear engine car is there out there, right?
Yeah.
So when I started kind of like fancying it, I remember looking at the configurator, at the time, I'm pretty sure a base 997 was 85 grand. And I remember looking like, why is the GT3 less money than a GT2? I
Yeah.
didn't understand it all.
Yeah.
But I was developing this fascination. Like,
Sure.
so we're talking about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And so when it came time for when I decided to get my first one, which is 996 cab, I didn't know anyone who had a Porsche.
Yeah.
I had a few distant people over the years that I kind of knew or what have you, but
Yeah.
I was just telling a story the other day. I remember meeting this friend of a friend who got the Cayman when it came out. 997 Cayman. I was like, I looked at it all funny. I'm like, their rear quarter of that car is damn weird. Like, why is it so sloped like that? And now I have a 987.1 Cayman hot rod 3.8 in it. And I used to prefer the 981 body style of the 987, but
Yeah.
now I think the 987 is wonderful. It's the original car. Owning a Cayman is like owning a poor man's Ferrari, except it won't break as much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. You won't have to spend as much money on it, or
and you could drive it. You don't have to brag about how low your miles are.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
true.
just been part of the process, and really I got in with that spot. So I bought my first Porsche 2012, and then right then there was the Magnus Walker Urban Outlaw video came, and then shortly thereafter was Lufka Cult. So it was in all this whole wave of things just happened, and then I guess this is the reason why we're all here today.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think that I can definitely relate to it starting off kind of small and just a basic interest, a random interest, and then all of a sudden it becomes something that makes you want to buy the car. It makes you want to start meeting other people that are into those cars, going to people's events, Well,
I remember looking on eBay at 964s and other air-cooled cars, like these prices can't be right.
Yeah.
Like this 15,000, this car's got to be a total shit.
Yeah.
Shit. But little did we know back then that they were probably solid driver cars that should have bought about 10 of them. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was an interesting time, and I've just changed drastically in the last 5 to 10 years. And it's one of those things where even for myself, how I got into it was I'm a trainer, for my living, aside from being a gym owner, but I've been a trainer for a long time. And I met a lot of cool people, just like a barber. Barber always meets. They have a great social network. They always meet those different people. And there's this guy named Marty that I had trained, still really good friends with him. And we started training together. This is probably maybe 11 or 12 years ago or so. And he had a Cayman. I didn't know what it was, though. And I didn't even know, I knew of Porsche, but I didn't know what it actually was. If I saw one on the street, I wouldn't point it out, But he pulled up to the studio that I was working at the time. And when he pulled up, it just totally stole my attention. I was training someone else, and I just started staring out the window, and I was mesmerized by it. And it was just by the build of the car, and I guess the way he just drove it into the parking lot, the way it turned. So when he came in and we started training together, I said, "What is that? That's an amazing car." And he was like, "Oh, it's a Porsche Cayman." And I was like, "Wow." I was like, "That thing's really, really cool." He's like, "Thanks." And I didn't think he thought anything of it,
Yeah.
And then several years later is when I decided to open up this gym. He came over with me as my client, And he came in one day, it's probably 4 months into this place being a gym. And he said, hey, he goes, I have a deal that you're not gonna be able to turn down. He goes, I just bought brand new Targa and I'm selling my Cayman. And he goes, I'm going to sell it to you for a price that you can't turn me down on as a congratulations gift for having the sort of wherewithal to venture off and start a business and take a huge risk and believe in yourself and all this shit. And he's kind of a guy that, doesn't come from a lot. And I think he just sort of saw like the same thing. And so, yeah, he basically made me buy it off of him. And I was absolutely broke when I bought it off of him because I just dumped all my money into the gym. But it was a good enough price where I just couldn't say no. And he goes, I don't care how long you take to pay it off. You just got to pay me eventually.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I got into that. Originally, I'm not going to lie, I got into it because it looked like a cool car.
Yeah.
And there was like some credibility that comes along with having that car.
As it should.
But when I started driving it, that's when I realized what I had. And it wasn't just like on the street, wasn't racing someone on a line or anything. It was actually get out on the highway, taking an exit. That sweet spot that they hit when you're on the road for a couple of hours, they just started floating.
Yeah.
That's when I realized what I had. And then I started thinking like, what are the older cars like? Like where did this come from? And I started looking to other people that were into this. I found Magnus Walker online.
Yeah.
And that's how the whole thing started for me. I didn't really seek it out necessarily on my own. I didn't really have it as a goal as like a teenager or anything.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of people have a similar story where it just like kind of happened to you, and then all of a sudden.
What color was this Cayman?
Red.
So, not seal gray probably, but other color eludes me. Atlas gray, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's the color.
Kind of like a purpley.
Oh no, like I'd say probably more seal gray, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. My
there's
guess.
probably a few other grays that were missing.
Yeah, but that's how it happened, and thankfully that guy was nice enough to recognize that I liked it. He remembered I said something about it, and that's how that all came about. And
stuck with it.
Yeah, and it's funny because like when you think about that car, that brand, it can be perceived a lot of ways for better or worse.
Yeah.
But the way I see it, and I'm sure the way you see it, is that we're kind of like breaking the mold of what that could be and making it our own thing and making it really available for a lot of people. Like a lot of people think you have to have a ton of money to have that car.
Right.
You just have to be.
You have to have
creative.
some fun.
You have to have some fun.
You have to be able to pay some bills.
Yeah, initially, no, but then like later you realize you're like how much. Yeah, it's going to cost you to keep that car in good order.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh yeah, this was no big deal. Like, and then.
But no, before you own one though, you do put it on this pedestal, and you think it's like this exotic thing that you're going to be bringing into your life, and you're going to have to change everything. And then you get to a certain point where you drive it, you realize this is just like owning any other car. I think it's a lot more fun, but
yeah,
that whole notion fades away.
Yeah.
I had it. There was this one fellow named Adam actually who years ago was going to buy a 997, and he's asking those questions. He lives in the city. He's like,
yeah,
can I drive it on the streets? Can I do you do everything? There's nothing to be afraid of. Just get it, enjoy it. And then, and then he did, and he realized like, yeah, you were right, but
yeah,
there is that he walked through that threshold for the first time and then just realized you could treat it just like anything else.
Yeah, definitely.
But you're going to want to treat it that.
Yeah, as best you can. And then, so talk to me about your car that I see all over your Instagram.
Yeah.
I saw it at the show last weekend. What year is it? It's like a maroon color, but it has like some really interesting
just say
art.
brown.
It's brown.
No, you didn't say brown.
Oh, okay.
You can say brown.
Oh, so okay, good. So
It's
I
garnet
succeeded.
red.
Garnet red. All right, cool. And there's really awesome art on the side of it. But I want to talk briefly about that car. And it looks like you put a lot of time into it. I know you've had it for some time now, so I just want to discuss that really briefly.
Yeah. So the real dream, I think, I'll at least speak for myself, that you could probably attest because you own a Jeep body as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the air-cooled 911s are really where it's at.
Agreed.
Once you get used to it, once you experience it, nothing else can compare. The proportions, the driving experience, when I'm going slow, I'm engaged. I feel like I'm going fast. I take mine on all kinds of road trips and rallies and
Mhm.
stuff. But so the G body, I was casually looking for one. I kind of always thought I would maybe end up with an SC,
Mhm.
but a friend tagged me in Facebook Marketplace ad one morning. I woke up like
Yeah.
8 in the morning. I'm like, starting my day. I'm like, okay, it's like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And it was for the 3.2 Carrera that would become mine.
Yeah.
And I really like dark reds. And I thought, hey, this car is like in a price range I could handle.
Sure.
It wasn't crazy by any means, especially for the time.
Yeah.
I sent the owner a deposit that evening, and then
Mhm.
we had plans to, finish the deal and everything else. So that took some time. Eventually I brought the car home. But in that period, we had the second checked it out while all this was going down.
Wow.
Because I made the deal for the car in June of 2019.
Okay.
And it was kind of thinking like, how can we dress it up? How can we do some fun things with it? I was doing this based on the idea that would make its debut at that year's Checked It Out,
Yeah.
which totally did not happen.
Yeah.
But that year at Checked It Out, we worked with the artist Jordan, who right now works at Dark Matter and Chicago Fire. Used to be at the time he was doing the branding for Solomon's beer. So he did what is my favorite of our Checked It Out posters, the one of Tony Sotillo's Pablo the Porsche, yet white SC Targa with the stripes on it. It's all over Instagram.
Yeah.
It's in Milwaukee.
Yep. Very familiar with that.
So that poster is just phenomenal. And then Jordan was able to work with my idea to do a livery on the car that was an homage to Nadas Kappas, which Jordan had done something previously. Nadas is a skateboarder from the 80s. Him and Mark Gonzalez are kind of like the creators of street skating,
Yeah.
the cool style and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So we did a play on one of his Panther graphics. He had many different ones. And I told Jordan, I'm like, let's do gold leaves instead of green, because I had kind of a gold thing going on with the car.
So that's where that color came from.
Yeah.
I see.
And plus when we went to make the vinyl, we did on gold. Rich Guzman, who does all the vinyl stuff for me,
Yeah.
he put it on gold metallic wrap. And then Jordan, to his credit, said, what about this Reaper character? Let's get that guy on in this art.
Yeah.
So if you notice on the rear quarter, there's the 70s looking guy with the kind of feathered hair and stuff. And that's my buddy Bill, who's now like 68 years old, and he's got the best stories, and we race with them and hang out with them. And
That's awesome.
I've done a few art pieces where there's like a Reaper character, which is Bill's nickname.
Yeah.
So
I see. So that's where that character.
That's where that comes from. Yeah. So it's just been fun, and it's cool having something that people give you a lot of thumbs up for or whatever, and they enjoy it.
Yeah, it definitely sticks to your memory. I think the first time that I saw it, and at this time I didn't realize that you were sort of like, in charge of a lot of these events, or really behind the scenes in a lot of these events. So I did like a toy run.
Yeah,
you guys.
The toy guy drive. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was at Westmont. That started at Westmont, maybe, if I remember right.
Yeah, that was the first one in 2020.
Yeah, so I did that. My fiance Katie went with me, and it was a really chill, like, sort of start to it. And then once it actually got going, it kind of got into some windy roads, and I realized that everyone.
It was designed by Dan. The route was designed by Dan. Designs where all the cars go for Checked It Out.
Gotcha. So that's his sort of area expertise is pre-planning, but everyone was being really safe. It wasn't like out of control, but I realized that everyone was, when they had the opportunity, was picking up speed and trying to kind of test the limits on some of the corners. And that's when I realized that I was like, man, this group of people, I don't know any of them. Like I had like one conversation.
Though, man.
Yeah, it was sick, so everything you guys do has a good vibe to it, and it's fun, and it's easy to get involved with it, in my opinion, from being just a stranger on the outside. You brought up artwork earlier.
Yeah.
And we have a mutual friend, Booker. And what's really, really funny is that Booker, he worked at Rockwell for a long time. during his time, and he was a member and actually a client prior to working here. So I guess he really worked here half the time. But either way, he's been a part of the gym for a long time before he moved. And when I slowly started getting into these cars, he brought you up to me several times. I don't know if you ever mentioned.
Same. He would say the same.
Really?
Yeah.
So you never, I don't think you ever mentioned your name to me for whatever reason, but he was
Yeah.
just like, yeah, man, he goes, I got this buddy. He's like obsessed with Porsches. He's just so into it. He's this crazy dude. And he just always mentioned you to me, and I never really had the chance to meet you or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's funny that down the road, this whole thing came about. And I know that he did some artwork for one of your checked it outs. It was 22. So, and I realized that when I saw that artwork, that it was obviously Booker's style. He has a very unique style. There's no other person that does artwork the way he does. But he also did your guys' artwork in a way that really made your art stand out, and you could tell it was his work, but you could tell there was something clearly different about the art that year. So what went into?
Well, I want everyone to have their freedom that we work with, I had an idea that I sent to Booker, and I've been trying to make it happen for a while.
Yeah.
But he was free to do whatever he want. And the coolest thing is, like, giving him that freedom, or whatever, however you want to put it. He's the one who came up with the pigeons as news reporters. Yeah. I was like, this is perfect. And I'm so glad you thought about that, Booker. Because kind of alluded to it earlier with Tony and the Targa Pablo. Our heroes are the people who join us. Our inspiration is the folks who are part of the event.
Yeah.
So in Booker's case, I've been wanting to pay homage to a fellow named Brian Jackson. Brian Jackson is a former Sun-Times news reporter, photographer. He's been in the Porsche game a really long time. He first saw Porsches. They were doing autocrossing in Soldier Field, if you could believe that.
Really?
I think we're talking like early 80s. And then
I had no idea.
Yeah, the Porsche PCA used to run autocross in the parking lot of Soldier Field.
That's awesome.
And then I believe he got a 914 when he was in college. But we all know him for his olive F-body 911 that used to be a bit of a smoker for what we built, but it has a lot of character. It's a very cool car.
So that's where that color came from.
Yeah. So I'm like, how can we do an art piece that talks about Brian and him being a photographer and in the news industry in Chicago, and that was like really the parameters I gave Booker, and just wanting to make that happen, and he did. And it's the T-shirt and the sewer cap image that Booker did with Chicago Convergence, which sums up our events. Is like, sometimes you get lucky and it just meshes,
Yeah. Now, were there other people in the community that recognized what that car was, or what that like sort of art scenario was?
Yeah, I mean, we do look up our part to like tell the backstory too,
Yeah.
Like this year, I should back up too. One of our things is we like to work. Since 2019, we've worked with 2 local artists, each checked it out.
Yeah.
So this year we did 2 folks, and then one of the guys' cars, our friend that's known more famously as English Bob, and it's just funny that people this year are like, who's English Bob? What's English Bob? It's like, oh, he's just this guy who's not English nor named Bob. Don't worry about it.
And no explanation.
No, he's got a cool race car that's kind of a bit of a lot of pieces, and it's like, once again this year working with both artists Jeff Pack and Ramiro Hussar, it's just been fantastic. It's been fantastic experience. That's really like the thing that gives me the most joy. Well, first it's people who enjoy coming to the event, and then it's producing the work, working with these artists, selling people a T-shirt or a poster or whatever that they really dig and they have in their house,
Yeah.
Like earlier this summer, I went to this guy Hal's home, and I'm walking through to go use the bathroom off his garage. We're all hanging out with cars, and I see it was the Booker poster of all things. Actually, he had it framed, and then he had event pictures of him and his family around it in the on the frame,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
in the border, which was like, I had to take a picture of that myself.
Yeah.
Just to see that was so cool. It's so
Right. You make
personal.
feel pretty good.
Yeah.
You
You
know?
know, that's it's rewarding.
Yeah, and it's tough doing things, you know, like running any kind of event, running any kind of business, doing anything that requires preparation is not easy, and it takes a lot out of you. And there's definitely times where you're questioning what you're doing, you know, for a lot of reasons, and you see things like that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of times where like, oh my God, is this art going to be too much for people? You know, and
Yeah,
you've been lucky that everyone seems to like it. You know, people have their favorites, but
sure, yeah,
as a whole, it flies. But and I do believe that we are pushing the envelope. Like for instance, with the Booker, like you could have ran with it whatever direction you want.
yeah,
You know, crazier the better. Just do your thing. You know,
yeah,
and I don't want to be creating car show T-shirts or
yeah,
bullshit.
yeah. How did you meet Booker, if you remember?
Instagram easily.
Oh, Instagram. Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool.
I I pretty much think that that's probably where I sourced every artist I ever worked with.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, and it just is a question of do they answer their DMs or not?
Yeah.
But for the most part, they do. They do.
Yeah, yeah. Most of the time, you know, I use the word dumb because it's just, you know, sometimes people they think too much about things.
Yeah.
And so my thing is that you just have to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to message someone, and if they don't get back to you, then you can't take it personally.
Yeah.
You just move on to someone else or whatever. Maybe they'll get back to you later. 99% of the time, I feel like if you try to reach out to people, a lot of times I'll get back to you if it's realistic. You know.
Yeah. If you're legit, your heart is in the right place, I think you're gonna be successful.
Yeah, agreed. And I actually met Booker at a Mariano's.
Okay.
Originally,
Yeah.
we were both at the salad bar one day,
There you go.
and he had a West Side Barbell shirt on, and I was like, "Oh, you like to lift weights?" As we are both like filling up our little like salad box, you know.
Yeah.
He goes, "Yeah, yeah," and I was like, "Well, I got a gym down the street, and it's pretty damn close to West Side Barbell, so you might want to come over there and check it out."
Oh,
And that's just how me and that dude became friends.
right. Great.
And it just also says a lot about Booker that he'll just meet a dude at the grocery store and start hanging out with all these
Yeah,
people and not
yeah.
question or anything. Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about some of your travels as well, because
Yeah.
like I said, I do try to keep up with your Instagram,
Yeah.
try to pay attention to what's, you know, all the stories occasionally. And it does seem like you travel a fair amount, or, you know, you try to get out there as much as you can. So what were some of your, you know, say top one or two experiences traveling because of Porsches or cars? Doesn't really matter what.
Yeah.
Just, you know, and I have a couple of my own that I figured I'd mention to you too, but just wanted to see if you had any cool memories from getting out and about, you know, doing things on the
Well, in
front.
22 and 23 was basically this a big project. So Porsche had Rennsport reunion last year at this time, September 2023. And I started putting these things together. What can I do to make sure I'm there, have my car there? Checked out, I was throwing a little pop-up party there for about 500 people, which was great.
Yeah.
But we left, my partner Brooke and I left Chicago Labor Day weekend of 2022 with the intention of making the Overcrest Rally in her home state of Idaho. I had car issues, basically a brake caliper froze up, but didn't make the rally. But the end to that leg of the trip was to leave my car in Las Vegas with my friend Dwayne Wick. So get the car to Dwayne. I go visit him in October for Luft the Cult 8 in LA, which is the event that inspired us all, which I'll be at Luft 10 if anyone is going there this year too, which I'm sure you all are. Horse people anyway. So leave the car in Vegas. I'm able to drive the car from Vegas to LA and back. Then I come back, go to SEMA, drive the car around LA. Then I moved to Phoenix, did some traveling there in the Phoenix, you know, could fly home, fly back, got my car there waiting for me. And then it became time for the whole Rennsport reunion thing, which me, my friend Mike, and his partner Rebecca, we drove, you know, through Joshua Tree and did the whole thing in California. I ended up getting I needed an alignment bit. I got one in Pasadena, my buddy Jack there, and which is a whole experience. So then we got to Rennsport, did the whole Rennsport thing. And then there was more. So the Overcrest Rally that year or last year was in Oregon. So I left my car on my friend Elliot's trailer from Rennsport, from the track at Laguna Seca. Elliot transported a few of our cars to Oregon. A month later, not even a month, like 3 weeks, 2 weeks. We flew back out, picked up our cars, went to do the rally. Oregon roads are phenomenal. Like you're out in the woods, just seeing just all kinds of different topography. Just it was a really great weekend.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, after 13 months, now's the time to drive the car back home. And I didn't want to. Anyone who drives cross country from Chicago knows Iowa and Nebraska. No offense, but your states fucking suck. It's drive through. So and I was like, oh, I'll go up through Montana.
Yeah.
And I made that way and then stopped in the Twin Cities, see my buddy Louise, and drove down. And I was like, oh shit, after 13 months of having my G body away from home, it's now back.
Yeah.
So that was a trip. And, even prior to that in 2022, I did a bunch of rallies that year.
Yeah.
I think 2022, I logged 12,000 miles on a car.
Damn. Talk about not being afraid of putting miles on on an antique car.
Well, it's a high mile car. But
yeah.
The funny thing is, like, the poor baby, like, probably sat for 5 years. Until I owned it.
Prior to you, right?
Yeah, it was never titled by the previous owner and stuff. So it was like totally neglected. But now she's alive and thriving, right?
Yeah.
So this year I had a few bit of minor problems on, going on rallies. I lost the starter, the last one, and which I was like, this thing has finally happened to me. I had a car where it loses a starter, a manual car, and all the way home, my friends would push me and get started. And
kind of sucks, but also makes for a good memory.
Yeah, it's if it were easy, none of it would be fun.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's funny because sometimes when my fiance and I travel, I'll try to find ways, whether it's planned or unplanned, to involve Porsche with some of our trips because when you're somewhere on a different when you're on a different side of the world or you're in a different state you never go to, you start just wondering who else is out there that somehow fell into the same thing. Sometimes you find nothing. And sometimes you find really, really cool things. And the most recent thing that happened to us that, I really pushed it. It wasn't by chance.
Okay.
But we got a little bit lucky with how cool the goal ended up being. So we went over to Asia last December and January. And we've been to Vietnam several times because Katie's Vietnamese. But I told Katie, I said, I love Vietnam and I'm glad we're going back. But if we're going to go a third time, I want to start checking off some other boxes out there instead of just one, so I'd like to go to South Korea, maybe Japan, and then we'll make it over to there, So when we got to Japan, I realized when I was in Tokyo that I was like, Akira Nakai lives here. And funny enough, I didn't realize at the time until he actually told me that he wasn't really there a lot.
He can't be.
Right. But I didn't know that. So when we're in Tokyo, we got settled in for a day or so, and Katie was catching up on sleep, and I was out getting some food and coffee like, I normally do. I would eat caffeine head. So I started looking the number up to Akira's shop, trying to find a way to get in touch. And I called, no answer. Called another hour, no answer. I called like a third time, like 3-4 hours later, and someone picked up. So I thought it was like his assistant, like a shop manager or something like that. And I was like, hey, I really want to try to come out and say hi and say hello and maybe get a picture, something like that, and how late will you be there? And it was already like 8:00 at night. And he goes, oh, we'll be up till like 11 or midnight.
Cigarettes and Coca-Cola and Stella Artois.
So I go back to the hotel and I tell Katie, I said, hey, I think we're going to take an Uber like an hour out of town. It's going to be kind of a weird night, but I think you should go. She's like, all right. So we get in the Uber, we go all the way out there. We get dropped off at the end of the street, and it really wasn't in front of the location. It was like a little ways back. So, and it's like, it's not extremely rural there, but it's rural enough to where if you get dropped off, you don't know where you're at. It's kind of an odd feeling, So we start walking down the street, and then all of a sudden I know we're in the right location because I see like 8 911s,
Okay.
you know, and I'm like, okay, that's probably a good telling sign that we're nearby. So we go up to the door, knock on the door. I thought I was going to talk to this assistant that I thought I was talking to on the phone, and it was actually Akira who answered the door, and I couldn't really talk that well for a minute or two.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty good with meeting people that I look up to. I usually don't do that, but I didn't think it was going to be him.
Yeah, right.
So he goes, "Hey, you guy on the phone?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Come on in." It's just him and his dog, you know, by himself. And I look at Katie, I'm like, I cannot believe we're just in this guy's shop right now. So he pulls up a chair for us. We just sit down and talk for 10 minutes. And, you know, his English is pretty good, but it's not great. So it was a little tough talking to each other, but we kind of made do. And he didn't give a shit. Obviously, neither do we. So we talked for about 10 minutes and, you know, and then he goes, well, I got to go work on this bumper. So he just like left us sitting in his bar, little living room in the garage, and then starts painting this purple bumper and like a quarter panel that was hanging up in the back where he had all like the plastic sheets and everything.
Yeah.
Katie just played with his dog for a little while. We just sat there for like a half hour and just watched him paint and then took a picture with him and then couldn't get an Uber on the way back, so it was too late. So we had to walk to a train, but it wasn't super far.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of rad taking the train back, but
Yeah.
you know, we're willing to just try and see what we can do. And, you know, randomly met that guy. And then ironically enough, when I was at your event, there was 2 cars, I think, right, that he had worked on. And I met DJ.
Yep.
Is that the guy's name?
Yep.
So I didn't realize that the yellow car was Hira's car.
Yeah.
So I went up to EJ and I said, hey, are these your cars? They're really nice. He goes, this is not my car, man. And then he explained whose car it was. And then he kind of explained to me the situation, how he was sort of caring for Kira's car.
Which I don't even really understand the whole.
I don't understand it either. It was actually really crazy. And I think he told me like 3 times. And I think he thought that I was really dumb because I kept asking for another round. And it was just really interesting. He's like, yeah, I like this guy's going to work on one of my cars and I'm looking after his car and he's going to come out here this fall and we're going to drive to SEMA.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I was like, this sort of thing that we're all into is so badass. There's a guy that lives in Japan or all over the world. There's a random guy in Chicago looking after his car. You know,
EJ travels a lot when the guy's in the States too.
I see.
Yeah.
You know, and then
so when that other car that you saw that was built in Indianapolis, it's known
gray
as
one, right?
Dog.
It's like a
green, gray.
Oh, it's a
it's a real cool car.
Yeah.
But all them guys were down there for him, you know, witnessing it, the whole build process and all that. And actually where EJ takes the car now is the same place I take my cars as well, just Big Boost Performance.
Yeah.
So they now are the Chicagoland RWB caretakers. So
I see.
when EJ does get that, he's doing a 997 build, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure.
They'll be part of the process, and you just might land yourself an invitation, I think.
That'd be awesome. I would.
If I could help
Sure.
help make that happen, sure.
Yeah, I would absolutely love that. I would freak out. Yeah, that would be great. But yeah, it was just really cool, and it just kind of goes to show that the majority of the people, you know, that are into this are generally just stoked that other people around. They just want to draw other people in, and you know, it's a good feeling. And I think we all just want other people to experience the same thing. You know.
Yeah, EJ's very eloquent and talks about the whole process, and he's a good ambassador for RWB.
He's a stylish guy too. I was like talking to him, like
he did have the fit of the show.
Yeah, I'm like, you're wearing a scarf right now, and you look so awesome.
I was like, man, is that an ascot?
I don't think I can wear a scarf. I just don't think I'm that confident to pull off a scarf. But no, he was really nice, really sweet. And the people that were with him were really awesome too. They were standing there, were exchanging stories and everything. And I also saw on your Instagram that you're a record collector.
Yeah.
So what kind of records do you collect, and what kind of music?
About everything that I like.
Yeah, and you know, like I kind of explained the gym to you really briefly when you came in. Just gave you a small tour. I kind of told you like when we started, how we started. But music is such an immense part of this gym. It's almost 50 to 75% of the gym sometimes, even though lifting.
How so?
Well, myself and a lot of people that were the original 10 members were all punk hardcore people.
Okay.
You know, prior to this gym. And so this gym starting was an additional outlet for those people.
Okay.
That, you know, probably never really felt like we looked like we would go to a Lifetime or looked like we go to an East Bank, and nothing wrong with those places, but you know, just not really our vibe.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how this place started originally. Was that happened to be me, who's kind of a weird dude, and other people that sort of fit the same category. wanted a place to train that was a little bit more aggressive, a little more aggro, but like inviting, not like, this is a gatekeeping thing. And once the gym got up and rolling, we sort of realized like, yeah, we're going to play the records that we want to play. Like we're going to play things that are a little outlandish that, aren't for your atypical crowd. Some people might not like it sometimes. That's okay.
Right.
So it's a huge, huge part of the gym. And I was just curious, what kind of music you're into, what kind of stuff you collect, what kind of shit do you listen to when you're out driving around the country?
I didn't grow up with buying vinyl. My first musical purchase was on cassette. It was mostly first tape was Run DMC Raising Hell.
Oh yeah.
But somewhere middle of high school, I remember back in like mail order catalog, I call a phone number and I got my first set of 2 turntables.
Yeah.
And so a lot of 94, 95 era hip hop 12 inches I have, but like you mentioned hardcore. I mean, I even have some 7 inches from Victory Records.
Oh yeah.
Shit,
yeah, that's awesome.
I was never like, I had friends who were really about that,
Yeah, sure.
The whole scene. And I went to a few shows back in the day, I don't know, McGregor's means anything to you.
McGregor's?
McGregor's. It was a venue out like in Elmhurst.
Oh, no, I moved here in 2007. So
yeah,
I don't know
the 90s, that was where all the hardcore shows were.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was like a restaurant, dude.
No shit.
We went there to see Shelter.
Damn, dude. My very, very close friend, Chris Fowler, he's a photographer out in LA, and he lived here for a long time, would be losing his shit right now. And honestly, might have been at some of those shows. I'll have to ask him next time I talk to him.
I remember specifically my 69 Cutlass being there. I don't know who else I drove.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were just, 16-year-old shitheads there. But my favorite stuff is basically 70s R&B, all the stuff that's been sampled, hip hop, and just digging. But
you like pulling from some of the like sort of the more background music that people don't notice from songs, and just kind of seeing where it comes from.
Yeah, I mean, first time finding like hearing an actual sample that was on like a well-known record was like such a freak out moment for me.
Yeah, it's
like,
kind of a win, right?
The early 90s,
what those are.
Kind of happened randomly, but
yeah.
And I'd like to say too that because of my admiration for hip hop and always being with me, hip hop is a reason why I'm a fan of Hank Williams Sr. It just gives me appreciation for music. Hank Williams is like the greatest songwriters ever. But there's that universality of hip hop and just back when it was still sample based, the real appreciation for music for every idiot in his notebook computer could make us track or whatever. But
So what's the so you brought up Hank Williams from hip hop. So what's the
I'm just saying that space that just gives me that always just gave me the appreciation.
Oh, I see.
The desire to discover things.
Hip hop does, or Hank Williams?
Hip hop.
I gotcha.
Sure.
So it kind of gives you the appreciation for a lot of things, and then is that kind of what allowed you to appreciate people like Hank Williams?
I mean, that's what got me into loving Barry White's music. I'd be a teenager, be playing your game, baby, and a funny kind of relevant story to that. My old neighbor, when I was moving, she's like, because I was listening to 70s R&B a lot in the car, she'd be like, Anna, when you move, I'm gonna miss your porno music.
She goes here in the background, and
okay,
it does kind of remind you that, I guess, if you think about it. And real fast,
we need good old fashioned love songs. They aren't made today.
No, it's definitely not the same. If you're ever out in LA and you have your car, or you have
go in October, but not with my car.
But yeah, if you have any friends out there that want someone to photo their car, my buddy Chris that I mentioned, it's the Shelter guy.
Yeah.
Would do some wild work for you. I'll have to hit him up and let him know. And I think you guys would jive really well too. He's very obsessive with his craft.
Yeah.
In a scary way. But like when he takes photos, when he edits these photos, when you get the final product, it's
because we're going to Lift 10. And my friend Dwayne lives in Vegas. I'm going to be rolling in with him.
Yeah.
whether it's preload on Friday or Saturday. His car is in the event itself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, maybe I'll mention it to him. He might kill me for bringing his name up, but never know. Real quick before we wrap this up, are there any future events that are coming up? I know you mentioned that there was a Lincoln one, I think that you had
Lincoln
said.
Common, it's a complex like by Lincoln and Fullerton. It's residential and commercial.
Yeah.
So we bring I call it kind of a glorified Coors and coffee concept. We start 9:30 in the morning. I handpick 30 to 35 different cars to be in the plaza each time because I don't want to give a view that people have seen. I want to keep it fresh.
Sure.
So then we have the 30-some cars there. Then on the rooftop of their parking garage, which has a phenomenal view of the city from that vintage.
Yeah.
We'll have 100, 120, close to 200 maybe at times. This is our sixth time doing this event, but we fill up the parking lot, the rooftop deck.
Sure.
So that is kind of like my last big thing of the year, except for the traveling.
Sure. And what's the date on that again?
That is 9/28. So Porsche 9/28. September
awesome.
28th.
Good date.
And we like to do things on Saturdays.
Yeah.
It's a Saturday morning. People are more
Makes
relaxed.
it easier. Yeah, definitely. Keep me in the loop with that. And if you want to, send me some posts and things like that, I'll definitely forward it on the gym social media and things like that. And honestly, there's a couple of people here that would probably roll through with me to check it out. And I'd love to try to promote anything you guys are doing.
Yeah, we have a good time.
Yeah, and I definitely would like to have you back on the podcast again soon.
It's been fun.
Thanks for doing the events that you do and, being so inviting.
Our pleasure.
And so just so people know, the Instagram that they can check out is Checked It Out.
Yeah.
Right. And then Low End Garage.
CheckedItOut.io. So
okay,
if you go to IG on Instagram at CheckedItOut, that is Carson Aufgebauer, the man who we named the event after. So Low End on IG is Low End Garage Chicago.
Awesome, man.
And I'm Adam M. Kern, Kern, but you don't have to go there.
Oh yeah, thank you. It was awesome spending time with you.
Yeah, cool.
That's it, Shar.
So I was planning for a question that you didn't ask me.
Oh shit, what was that?
It's all right.
Which one?
Chicago car community.
Oh shit. Do you want to edit out the exit and we can talk about that real quick?
Recording. Go ahead.
Oh, you are? Okay. Well, fuck it. We'll get on. Let's do that real quick. So yeah, tell me a little bit about the Chicago car community. Because I've lived here for, a fair amount of years. I moved here in 2007. But I haven't really gotten to know anything about the Chicago car community and probably till, 2015, 16, maybe 17. That's when I started to venture out and kind of meet people, meet different mechanics, that had worked on my cars. Most recently, Midwest Performance Cars is who's been working on my car, and they've been excellent to me. And
So
I
can Fulton?
What's that?
Fulton Market location.
I used to go there, and then Email, I think is his name.
Email moved, yeah.
Yeah, he moved, and so now I deal with Tom out there and him, and they're wonderful people. But yeah, my experience so far has been really awesome. But talk to me about your experience.
I was going to mention earlier the weird connection with Hardcore and Scott Mao and Booker.
Scott Mao. Yeah, he works for MPC.
Yeah.
And I actually met Scott here at the gym because he was training with my friend Adam.
Okay.
And he does some photography for Adam's band.
He's a great photographer.
Oh, yeah, he's awesome.
I love his stuff.
Yeah, he's a great dude, super funny, is really upbeat, easy to talk to. Yeah. And he's actually helped me get out of some pickles with some small car stuff I had here and there.
Well, what's awesome about Scott Relative Checked It Out is he loved the Booker work so much. After the event, he had Booker tattoo next day.
Really?
The pigeons.
Oh, that's
I think they might be a little different than on the poster, but still, it was like...
That's a sick tattoo idea.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Booker is in Asheville, Tennessee, right? I think that's where he's tattooed.
Knoxville.
Oh, Knoxville, you're right.
Pretty close.
I get that wrong every time. See, Knoxville. Yeah. But yeah, Booker's an awesome tattoo artist, and he tattoos here at Caroline's shop, at Copperplate Tattoo. So he'll come in, I feel like every 8 to 10 weeks, and still does some tattooing in Chicago. But yeah, so Scott got tattooed because of that part that Booker did. But yeah, tell me a little bit about the Chicago car community that, in your opinion, is, differentiating from the car communities throughout the U.S. or even internationally. Like, what do you feel like makes Chicago different in the car community aspect.
Well, I think, because I've thought about this question a lot, and I would just like to tell everyone that we're all the same. But in Chicago, we are in a position where we have more things to experience. There's always something happening in this city. Of course, there's Checked It Out, my event, the low end events, but in Chicagoland, we had the first car country club in the country. Autobahn was just a weird concept when they're just celebrating their 20th anniversary right now.
Yeah.
But that was a weird concept that people may say didn't think would take off, and now there's imitators everywhere. I was lucky enough to work with Grid Life on this past Checked It Out. Grid Life, I mean, who would ever thought you could create a racing series, have different classes, have drifting, and then have special events where you have concerts in the whole weekends. And it's like, they did Road America in July. They had 15,000 people there.
Yeah.
And hopefully Low End is going to work with them next year too. So we're going to hopefully do something cool as well. But in Road America, I was just there this past weekend for a PCA event. I mean, it's 2 hours away, but it's still part of our car culture. That is a town of Elkhart Lake is a special place.
Yes,
the cars that are around there, and just the whole experience. It's phenomenal. I mean, we don't have any mountains to drive.
Yeah,
it kind of sucks. Our roads are okay, but we still do it. I mean, we leave the city and go to Michigan by the lake, or up to Wisconsin like I did last weekend. So,
we have a lot of options around us. You just have to be willing. I would say two things. Yeah. You have to be willing to get outside the city and put some miles on the road to get to these cool locations. Yeah. I mean, even like Starved Rock. Yeah. Which is badass, awesome driving. And it's an hour away, hour and a half, I guess. You just have to be willing to like go to these locations, seek them out, ask people. But even in our own city, I feel like you have to be willing to, seek out cool routes. Like there's been nights where I've literally stayed up on the computer a little bit, tried to figure out a different route, a different way to get to Lower Wacker, a different way to get to like Lakeshore and to, come out off 55. And there's so many like little nooks and crannies. And I've also just tried to find places in the city that I've never been to before. I lived there for 18 years, I think. Yeah. And you think that you saw everything, but if you really try to see what's out there, I mean, there's so many streets and neighborhoods and things I've never been to before.
That reminds me of a special project that Checked It Out. So for this year's event, Phil, we had a group that was coming from the East Coast, Ohio and everything. They met in Michigan, or actually, I think it's technically Northwest Indiana.
Yeah.
But at this brewery. So that group of like 10 cars got together, and we sent our content team out there to meet them. And they filmed some footage coming into the city. And one of the things that they did do was, start in South Shore, High Park. And no one really, that run on Lakeshore Drive north to downtown, I actually happened to do it yesterday. People do not, it's not on camera enough. That's way better than away from.
It's never on camera.
You see the city in the background. And last night we did it at sundown because we were leaving Jackson Park.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, nothing is a secret, but it's really, And I know it's going to look good on our event film. So stay tuned for.
Yeah. I was going to say, maybe we should try to make that something that happens more often, and try to put some people together and do like a regular drive down there and try to do some media stuff. And
there's going to be a montage of these cars that came from the East to our event that I haven't seen the edit yet, but it'll definitely be in the film. Ryan Duffy's working very hard on it.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be a nice little feature to build us up. And then we go to the event. We had a party the night before. I've checked it out. So there's footage of that too. So something to look forward to.
But yeah. Thanks for being so inviting into the Chicago car community, and it's been an awesome experience, and I'm looking forward to seeing who else is out there, and hopefully being introduced to other just rad, easygoing people that just want to hang out and drive and have fun, So
it's only going to get better. So we're going to have more fun in the future.
Sure. All right, sure. That's it.